it's Kayla, and today I wanted to talk about everyone's favorite topic, dating with a disability. Even though I am married now, I didn't meet my husband until a few months before I turned 23, so I had my fair share of dating experiences before that, so I wanted to share those with y'all today. And I've gotten a lot of requests from people asking me to talk about how I met my husband, so I'm going to be talking about that at the end of this video since it's kind of like my last dating experience. Thank God. So I used to hide my vision impairment, which is true for my dating life as well. I didn't want anyone to know that I was visually impaired because I thought it would scare them away and they would not want to date me. But if I was in a relationship with someone, I didn't want to keep them in the dark forever. I thought it was important for them to know, so I would tell them after we had been together for a while because my thought process was at that point in time, they would have already been invested, they would have already spent a lot of time with me and really liked me, and at that point they would be so far in that it wouldn't scare them away. And it never did. Never when I told someone were they just like, oh my gosh, you can't see, I'm out of here. So I guess that's good. But I really struggled with feeling insecure. I thought that no one would want to be with me because of my disability. And I thought there were probably a million girls out there who were just like me, but who could see. So why would someone choose to be with me when they could be with a girl just like me without the burden of them having a disability? And so I felt like I needed to overcompensate for my disability. I felt like I needed to be extra attractive and extra smart and extra nice and extra funny to make up for the fact that I was visually impaired. And I put a lot of emphasis on being extra attractive because, a disability or blindness, those things are not seen as sexy. So I felt like I needed to be sexy in order to make up for it. So I made sure that I always looked good and I wore really tight and revealing clothes. So I thought when a guy did find out that I was visually impaired, he would just be like, well, she's so hot, I don't even care. And that was something that I thought and something that I really struggled with for a long time. So aside from the inner conflict of not feeling good enough, there are also some extra difficulties with physically dating when you're legally blind. For one, it's harder to meet people when you can't see people and you can't drive, so it's harder to meet someone somewhere. And, if they're creepy, you can't just get in your car and leave. And there are certain places and situations that if you're blind or visually impaired, you may not feel very comfortable in, like somewhere that's really dark or loud or really crowded. So for me, dating in high school wasn't really that difficult because high school dating is kind of like you meet someone in your class and you get to know each other, and then it's kind of like, hey, I like you, you like me, now we're boyfriend, girlfriend, and we text all the time and sit together at lunch and hang out at each other's houses on the weekends. So, I could handle that. It was pretty easy. Being visually impaired didn't really have a huge effect on any of that. I didn't really get presented with many opportunities to go on like an actual date, like out and about. And if I did, I would usually avoid those situations. So dating in college and as an adult is quite a bit trickier. For one, it's harder to meet people, and when you do meet someone, usually you get to know them by going on actual dates, which I didn't feel comfortable doing because, number one, I didn't want to tell them that I was visually impaired and I would need their help guiding me through a crowded restaurant or to my seat in a dark movie theater. Or number two, if they did know, because some guys did know because I used a cane on campus. So if they had seen me on campus with my cane, then they probably knew that I was blind. But I didn't feel comfortable trusting them to guide me. So I would just ask them to hang out at my apartment because that's where I felt comfortable. But there's a difference between hanging out with your high school boyfriend at your house where your family lives and inviting a guy over for your first date to your apartment where you live by yourself. And I think a lot of guys got the wrong impression because, they were offering to take me out to dinner and I was like, well, let's just hang out at my apartment instead. And I totally get what that looked like, and I don't blame them for getting the wrong idea because, they had no idea what my reasons were. So I think there were some potential relationships that got turned in the wrong direction because I was giving off the impression that I wasn't interested in a relationship. I was just wanting to hook up, which wasn't true. But I will say that I had equally bad luck with the guys who did know that I was visually impaired and with the guys who did not know I was visually impaired. And I was having the same bad luck as all of my sighted friends. We had the same experiences of college guys not wanting a relationship or a commitment, or they would pretend that they wanted a relationship to get what they want, or they would do what's now known as ghosting, where they seem really interested and then they fall off the face of the earth and you never hear from them again. But all of that couldn't have been because of my disability or because of me, because it was happening to all of my sighted friends too. So I think that's important to mention because I know as disabled people, it's really easy for us to internalize and to blame it on our disability and say, he doesn't like me because I'm legally blind. He doesn't want to date me because I'm disabled. And probably a lot of times that's not true. And you're probably having the same bad luck as everybody else. Okay, so I want to talk about the one really serious relationship that I've had other than my husband. I was a senior in high school and I started dating this guy I had been really good friends with, and we dated for almost 2 years from about the middle of my senior year of high school to the middle of my sophomore year in college. And I was head over heels in love, and I really do think he felt the same way about me. We were pretty much inseparable, and he did know about my vision impairment, and he was really accepting of it, and he was super helpful. And I just thought he was the one. We even got engaged. I'm really embarrassed to admit that I got engaged like a month before I turned 19, and he was a year younger than me, so it was like 2 days before he graduated from high school. Guys, I'm cringing telling you this. But yeah, there was a ring and we set a date and looked at a venue and everything, and then he ended up dumping me. Not because of my blindness, but because he was 18 and he wanted to go be 18 and not be tied down. And I was devastated. I was completely shattered. And that's pretty normal for a breakup, especially with a serious relationship. But I think I was especially because I thought he was the only person who would ever love me and accept me for my disability. And that was my one chance. And I wasn't going to find anyone else. But obviously I did, and my husband is 10 times better than that guy. And I'm thankful now that he dumped me. But at the time, it was really devastating. So I just want to say to all of my fellow disabled people, if you're struggling with a breakup, I promise that was not the only person who will love you and accept you for who you are. There are plenty more out there. And if you're currently in a relationship that you're not really sure about, but you think that that's your only chance at love, you don't have to settle. There are people out there for you. Okay, on a lighter note, let's talk about my hubby. I met my husband when I had been graduated from college for about 9 months, and it gets a lot harder to meet people once you're out of school. So I was trying to meet guys at bars and was not finding very quality gentleman. So I started asking my sister's boyfriend at the time, he's now my brother-in-law, if he had any friends that he could fix me up with. And so he said he had this one friend that he thought we would be a good match, and he told me a little bit about him, and I thought he sounded good, so we arranged for a double date. So my sister and I met my husband and my brother-in-law for dinner, and my brother-in-law did tell my husband before we even met that I was visually impaired. So he already knew, and he still wanted to meet me and pursue a relationship with me. So about a week later, we had our first date, just the two of us, at my apartment. We watched a couple of movies, but pretty much just talked the whole time, and I felt like we really connected. And at the end of the date, he didn't even try to kiss me. He just asked me for a hug, which I think is so cute and so sweet that he didn't get the wrong idea like all of those other guys when we had our first date at my apartment. And then our next date, we were going to go out to dinner, and I was really nervous because I wasn't sure exactly how much he understood about my vision impairment. So I very begrudgingly texted him and was like, hey, I don't know how much you were told about my vision, but I will need you to hold my hand and help guide me. And I don't remember exactly what he said, probably just, sure, no problem. And he did hold my hand from the second he came to my door to pick me up, and he did a really good job of guiding me around. And he told me a few months later that he was excited that he had an excuse to hold my hand, which I think is really sweet because in that moment, not only was my disability not a negative to him, but it was actually a positive. He saw it as a good thing. And that's pretty much our story. He's always been so understanding and accepting and supportive and helpful, and he's the first person I've ever really been able to open up to and talk about my vision impairment with, and I just think he's the greatest. So I hope that gives you hope that you will find someone and there are people out there for you. Okay, so that's about it. I'm sorry if this video was long. I guess I had a lot to say, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like button and feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts or questions, or if you want to share your own dating experiences or tips. And I put out a new video every Tuesday, so click subscribe if you want to stay tuned for those, and I will see you next time.